what was fascinating to scholars, weapons scholars, not Bible scholars, is that when they put the image of the shroud through this machine called a VP8 image analyzer, a 3D hologram of Jesus literally emerges. The best scientists in the world today cannot explain how there is a molecular image in the shroud linen of Turin. This is so important because this is a group, this is a cross-disciplinary group. These are weapons specialists, weapons scientists from Sandia Labs in New Mexico, where they developed the atom bomb. I was really careful, will people make this an object of worship? And that's a big question I get. Like, does this break the second commandment? Well, no, it doesn't, because the second commandment forbids us from worshiping graven images that are man-made. I don't think the shroud is man-made. The shroud is a miracle, and I'm not worshiping it. I'm doing what John 20 really shows me that Peter and John did. They saw the shroud linen in the empty tomb. They believed in Jesus, and they ran to tell people about Christ. That's what the shroud causes me to do.
Yeah.
So the best scientists in the world simply cannot explain how the image is there. If you stand a few feet away from the image, it disappears. We cannot explain with our best scientists how the image is there. That's probably the fact that convinced me the most that it's not a hoax. And then applying my expertise in the historical Jesus, the physical resurrection of Christ, no one else was crucified the way Jesus was. We had crucified victims, remains all the way from Britannia to Italy to Jerusalem. The way that Jesus died was an especially heinous form of crucifixion, Eric. And this is breaking news on your show, things I'm still learning about the shroud. I used to say there were only 372 wounds on the crucified man in the shroud. I actually have to update my research based on this breaking news. We now can count 700 wounds on the crucified man. That means, likely, conservatively, 120 whiplashes on his body with that flagellation. Let that sink in for a minute. If we ever doubt God's love for us, Eric, Romans 5:8 says, but God demonstrated his love for us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. When I see the shroud, when I see the 700 wounds, that is a demonstration of Christ's love for me that I can't forget.
We were saying off camera that The Passion of the Christ, the Mel Gibson film, seemed to be a pretty accurate portrayal. The brutality in that film, it was the real deal. It was legitimate.
It was. There was a demonic level of excruciating pain that Jesus went through. He died of asphyxiation, trauma, organ failure, and he did it willingly. He did it because he wanted to. So let me get to the next point.
We're on number 4, I believe?
Yeah, number 4. So this is really interesting. And we have to go back to the days of film photography. Do you remember like 1-hour photo places where you would take pictures? Well, what was fascinating to scholars, weapons scholars, not Bible scholars, is that when they put the image of the shroud through this machine called a VP8 image analyzer, a 3D hologram of Jesus literally emerges of the crucified man. If you put other images through this VP8 image analyzer, it's just essentially like 2D. But this 3D image emerges. This is computers from the 1970s, okay? And that is what set off this emergence of research around the shroud. You can see that it has a 3D topographical quality to it.
And folks, it's wild. I always thought this was just a flat image. I didn't know it had the 3D quality. That absolutely amazing, especially when you're researching it in the 1970s. And by the way, one of the scientists was a secular Jewish guy who became a Christian after investigating and researching the shroud.
Right, and I want to give props to Barry Schwartz for giving us permission to use all of these photographs and all these digital assets. He thought it was a free trip to Italy as well, and he's a Jewish guy. He was a lapsed Jew who now believes, without a doubt, this was Jesus's burial